Hey there, everyone. Jerome here again with another episode of Should I Read It? Today's book is New York 2140 by Kim Stanley Robinson. As you can see, I've got this one out of my local public library, and let me start with a reminder to support all your public libraries, your local booksellers, and a quick reminder that if you like audiobooks instead of paper books, that's a completely legitimate form of reading, so go for it. I chose to go with the paper copy here of this book, and you can see right away, it's a big, heavy tome, and that's something I'm going to talk about here. So New York 2140 is the first book of Kim Stanley Robinson's that I've read, and he is quite well known, quite beloved, has a very large bibliography of various series and standalone novels, usually in the sci-fi genre. Many of his novels deal with the future and with climate change, and this one is no exception. As you can tell from the cover and from the title, it is about what New York might look like in just over 100 years from now. And the main idea is that when the polar ice caps have melted and the sea levels have risen, half of Manhattan will be underwater. So less so than a sci-fi book, this one is a bit of a speculative future book. And I like that aspect of it, definitely. He's known for writing hard science fiction, so the facts and details are quite believable in this particular book. The book is structured as multiple storylines, so we have several people in New York, including a building superintendent, a police lieutenant, there are two young children, an old man, and they all are surviving in this version of New York in the future. And we follow their various stories for the first half or so of the book before all the stories finally converge. And in addition to going into the details of how New York has managed with half of the city underwater, it also looks backward at some of the history for us as the reader is more recent and how New York became the city that it is. The storytelling is good and detailed, and the writing is interesting, and it's very engaging to see these various characters as their storylines converge. That being said, with the pure length of it, if you're someone who likes a shorter, quicker story, this book might not necessarily be for you. Some of the themes of the book, in addition to the effects of climate change, are the idea of resilience, both of cities and of landscapes, but also of the people within them. There's a huge sub-theme also of finance, global finance and American finance specifically, and also this notion of capital. And it should be said that Kim Stanley Robinson takes a very dim view of capital and how it's been used by the 1% historically, and he makes specific reference to this book, Capital by Thomas Piketty, which is also an incredibly thick and heavy book that most people have on their shelf and have not fully read. I am guilty of that. So some of these discussions are quite interesting, but at sometimes they do become a little pedantic and didactical. But usually before long, he reverts to the stories and keeps the plot moving. So, should you read this book? Yes, if you're interested in what our future might look like and what cities, particularly coastal cities, might look like due to the effects of climate change. Yes, if you like speculative futurism and realistic sci-fi with hard science. No, if this size of a book is a challenge for you. I'll admit it was a bit of a challenge for me to keep going. I found the first half moved quite quickly, but then by the second half, once the storylines converged, it did drag a little bit for me. So if you're willing to go through 600 pages, I think it's worth it. There is an audiobook available. You might be able to find it at your library. For me, I'm looking forward to reading more of Kim Stanley Robinson's work. His newest book, The Ministry of the Future, is available, and I think I'm going to do that one on audiobook sometime soon. Hope you found this useful, and happy reading.